How's it going, everybody? I'm Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel. Crossovers can be an amazing thing. They can lead to some really cool, really amazing results. I mean, look at me, I'm wearing a Bruce Lee versus Batman shirt. This is awesome right here. How come this hasn't become a comic book? But every once in a while, we get a crossover that isn't all that great and actually leads to some disastrous results, as is the case with the game we're going to talk about today. If you weren't big in the fighting game scene back then let me tell you, this was crazy for both good and bad reasons, but let's actually just talk about it. Let's examine this crazy dead body. If you didn't know it back then, Street Fighter X Tekken was one of the most anticipated crossovers in fighting games during the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. Seriously, I'm not even kidding when I say that the hype for this game was staggeringly high. When it was announced and revealed for the first time, people lost their minds. Don't believe me? Check out this clip from the reveal at a convention years ago.
Are you ready?
See what I'm saying? People were super ready for this. Anyway, Street Fighter X Tekken was officially released in March 2012. It also got released on the PlayStation Vita in October of that same year and had some timed exclusive content, but we'll get to that later. The game brings together characters from the Street Fighter and Tekken series for tag team battles, kinda like Tekken Tag Tournament. While the core gameplay was primarily inspired by the Street Fighter series with 2D fighting, the tag mechanic was directly pulled from the Tekken Tag games. Although I totally understand people saying it was more like the first Marvel vs. Capcom game in this regard. But before we get to the gameplay, what's the story behind this crossover? A mysterious box from outer space crashes to Earth in Antarctica, which releases an unknown energy when people come into conflict around it. The box is labeled Pandora. Cheesy reference, huh? And is sought after by scientists from around the world, including those working for the dreaded Shadowloo organization and the Mishima Zaibatsu Corporation. Every fighter in the world has some sort of journey towards Pandora, which is wildly inconsistent and removed from everything else that's going on. Ryu and Ken are out to learn more about Pandora while training together. Kazuya and Nina try to reach Pandora before anyone else can grab it. Heihachi and Kuma are vying for the same thing. Bison and Juri are trying to get ahead of Jin and Zhao Yu, and so on and so forth. Narratively, the game is a disaster compared to other fighting game stories, but it's better looked at as a celebration of both franchises coming together for the first time. Whether this was a great thing or not is very divisive amongst fans of both series.
Look at that. Totally off guard.
This is our best chance. We gotta seize the moment.
I don't care if he is a king. A 2 against 1 ambush? No one can stand up to that.
Now, let's take him down before his partner comes back.
Huh?
お主たち、先ほどの話は本心からのものか。
Now, the story of Street Fighter X Tekken isn't all that great. It's very shallow, it's very mediocre. It just feels tacked on like as a last-minute addition to the game as they were going into launch. Don't get me wrong, I get it that this is supposed to be a game that celebrates the combination of both Street Fighter and Tekken, and really that's at the heart of why this game is actually so kind of like appealing to some people. However, I would have loved it if they had a more straightforward story, like what they eventually did with Street Fighter V, where again, it's just one continuous narrative that you play in a story mode, as opposed to like listening to all the different arcade mode endings and stuff. Everything just kind of flat out contradicts itself or contradicts other endings here and there, and it just ends up being a disaster. I understand that some people out there might not agree with me, especially if you're a fan of the Tekken franchise, which is known to do stuff like this. They have all their different arcade endings that, again, tell their own story, even though there's like a greater narrative, but those also contradict each other and they're all over the place. In a time when we have places like NetherRealm Studios that really did a lot of great stuff with storytelling and fighting games, that's like the prime example to follow. What we get here in Street Fighter X Tekken is just kind of meh at best. But even with all of that, the heart of a fighting game is really in its gameplay. That's really the charm and really where all the FGC people really gravitate towards, especially if you're in the competitive crowd. How does the gameplay of Street Fighter X Tekken stack up? If you didn't play it back then and you were hoping that it was good and very underrated, then man, trust me, this is not gonna go how you expect. Playing Street Fighter X Tekken is a very mixed bag. Matches are 2 versus 2 bouts with teams sharing 1 health bar. Unlike the Capcom vs series, once somebody is knocked out, you lose the round completely. There is no switching to the other character when this happens. This severely changes the flow of matches and works like the Tekken tag games. The fighting is in 2D and mimics a lot of what Street Fighter IV was doing at the time, both in how it looks and the controls. There's 6 buttons to work with, like any other Street Fighter game. However, the game is overall very inconsistent and throws a lot of different mechanics at you that you'll probably never fully utilize. The Pandora Rage mode is like the X Factor mode from Marvel vs. Capcom 3, only here it gives you a huge attack boost after sacrificing your teammate. For a short time, you're super powerful, but once that time runs out, you automatically lose the round. Why anybody would do this is completely asinine. There's no reason to enter it unless you're about to lose a match, and even then, it doesn't really help much. There's no real payoff to using Pandora mode unless you really want to gamble with your life. Now for the big elephant in the room that everybody talks about. Let's discuss the gem system. Yeah, this thing flat out sucks. This is because the gem system is trying to be too many things at once. The game wants it to be the Infinity Stone mechanic from Marvel superheroes, while also trying to be a loot system where you gain rewards by completing matches. Yeah, you try to figure all that out. The gem system lets you equip different gems that boost your character when certain conditions are met to activate them. This can be from having a certain amount of life left, landing a specific amount of attacks, and even how much time has passed within a matchup. You could get things like attack and defense boosts, faster movement, and even some health recovery. This sounds good in theory, but in practice it can either not make a huge difference or break certain matchups. It is very inconsistent a lot more frequently than you might think. I know that sounds weird, but that's how the gem system really works. It's completely unbalanced and doesn't look like as if Capcom really took out enough time to flesh it out, especially for competitive play. I should also mention that Capcom tried to do some promotions that gave players some exclusive gems with varying effects, but these were also broken and further messed up the game's meta. Outside of turning off the gems altogether, the gameplay of Street Fighter X Tekken is a whirlwind of bad decisions.
Maybe it's some kind of condiment.
Maybe. I think they're mistaken me for someone else. Could make for a real interesting fight. I think I might have found a kindred spirit.
If you totally took out the gem system and completely removed every aspect or trace of it from this game, you would have a somewhat balanced fighting game, or at least something that felt a little bit more confident in line with some of the other Versus games that Capcom has done. But with the gem system, everything is just a mess, man. Even without it, just the fighting feels stifled. It just feels very restricted. Things just feel awkward and jaggedy all over the place. It doesn't free flow in the same way that Marvel vs. Capcom or Capcom vs. SNK or any of the other Versus games like Tatsunoko vs. Capcom feel really good to control. Granted, everything is moving fast all over the place. With Street Fighter X Tekken, everything is just held back. It's like it's locked in chains, and it just does not feel good in comparison to all those other games. And the gem system itself just makes everything more mucked up. With all of that being said, let's talk a little bit about the roster in Street Fighter X Tekken, because I do have some criticisms about it, even though I know that some people actually like it. They have some sort of good aspects about it, but there's some things I do want to touch on. I'm going to be straight up and say that the roster for Street Fighter X Tekken is actually good, but it's not without some faults with the absence of a few characters that would have made for some cool dream matches. No E Honda or Fei Long? No Eddie Gordo or Ganryu? I know I'm being nitpicky, but I'm just saying, people. Anyway, there's over 38 fighters split between Street Fighter and Tekken characters, so it's about even. The extra DLC adds another 12 characters, some of which were fan favorites that many felt should have been in here from the start. What's crazy is how the PlayStation 3 version of this game is considered to be the best. It has more characters in the form of exclusives like Mega Man and Pac-Man, as well as Cole McGrath from the Infamous series. Yeah, Cole McGrath was included randomly as a bonus character for PlayStation fans. But would you believe me if I told you that Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series was also going to be a guest character in Street Fighter X Tekken? I'm dead serious. This was going to be a real thing. Unfortunately, plans to include Nathan were cancelled before Capcom really got deep into development. My guess is that they wanted to include him for the PlayStation Vita version because of the release of Uncharted Golden Abyss. Maybe they just couldn't reach an agreement at the time that development went into full effect. Regardless, there's plenty of characters in here that capitalize on the hype of this crossover, so that's at least one good thing to say about this game. I think it would have been really sweet to get Nathan Drake in this game as a rival or even a tag team partner with Cole McGrath, but it would have been even sweeter if we got like console exclusive characters for each version of the game on the Xbox, on the PlayStation, or the Vita. It would have been really freaking sweet, kind of like what they did with Soul Calibur 2 back in the day. But even besides that, it would have been even more cooler to see some other like exclusive characters show up, especially if the PlayStation version was going to be the best version. Why couldn't we get characters like, the Hellgas from like Killzone, or Sweet Tooth from the Twisted Metal series? The possibilities are endless, and I know things would have been all over the place with the legalese and stuff, but for someone that's a fan of fighting games like me and just loves seeing crossovers in a game that's supposed to be a big crossover, that would have just added more fun to the whole mix. And then finally, let's just dive into some of the extra content and also the music of Street Fighter X Tekken, because there's a couple things in here that are actually good aspects about this game in the sea of all this other crazy stuff that people don't like. Like most other fighting games, Street Fighter X Tekken has extra modes like training, survival, and bonus challenges that allow you to practice your skills. You can unlock more gems to use by playing through them, but don't expect these to be super helpful. When you're done playing alone, you can hop online to fight against others around the world. Unfortunately, these days, Street Fighter X Tekken is a barren landscape online. Good luck trying to find anyone to play with. When all is said and done, there isn't many extras to enjoy in Street Fighter X Tekken. The music is very cool though, which has some remixed versions of classic tracks that are pretty dope. The color edit mode options are neat for customizing characters, but I would have rather gone a gallery with some artwork or something else. The menus show characters from both series clashing together, so where's all the original artwork that could have come from this? It just feels like the payoff to Street Fighter X Tekken is very meager and hardly lives up to the hype this crossover had. I love Street Fighter and Tekken games, but this might be a prime example of when two things coming together doesn't always end up being great. I feel very indifferent about this aspect of Street Fighter X Tekken because in all these other different things that are wrong with this game, I still do like the music, and I think that the extras had the potential to be really good, especially if there was more original artwork, because I don't know how you don't do that with a game that has two franchises that nobody thought would actually come together. Now you have all this potential and possibility to do like all this crazy cool stuff, kind of like what you see done with the Guilty Gear series or any of the other like Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle and all this other stuff, man. There could have been some really cool crossover artwork from a bunch of different original artists from either the Capcom or the Bandai Namco side of things. Why we didn't get that, it's beyond me, man. Now, of course, we can't talk about this game without mentioning the fact that Bandai Namco was making a Tekken Cross Street Fighter version. It was going to be their own version of this crossover, but with all the Street Fighter characters and the Capcom characters showing up in the Bandai Namco engine or the Tekken 7 or Tekken 6 engine at the time. There was even some screenshots that were leaked out of different model renders for both Ryu and I think also Zangief that showed them running in the Street Fighter engine, or at least how they would have looked. And that would have been really cool, just to see how some of these characters would have looked, at least, in a more realistic interpretation. Kind of like what all the Tekken franchise has pretty much done all these years. And we kind of did get that with Tekken 7, where Akuma and even Geese Howard from the King of Fighters series showed up in Tekken 7 as playable characters. That type of stuff is very cool. Why they never revisited this idea, or at least, gone back to that drawing board, is anybody's guess, but I'm pretty sure it had something to do with the bad reaction and just, the mixed reception of what people gave for Street Fighter X Tekken. This game just didn't do as good as what the hype was supposed to at least, give it. So after everything that I've said, can I recommend that you guys check out Street Fighter X Tekken? As much as I really wanted to love this crossover and was really hyped up for it at the time, I can't recommend anybody go back to this game. It just hasn't aged all that well. There's so many problems with it, and there's so much potential lost for what could have been an amazing crossover game. We could have gotten other crossover games kind of like this, or maybe even sequels to Street Fighter X Tekken, including the Tekken Cross Street Fighter game we just never got. But alas, all that potential, all that awesomeness that would have been amazing for the fighting game scene, completely lost to the tides of time. So there you go, everyone. Those are my thoughts about Street Fighter X Tekken. This game just isn't all that great. I know a lot of fighting game fans out there love their crossovers, but this is one of the duds that we got. I mean, we always still have Bruce Lee versus Batman. Seriously, DC, make this into a legit comic book. This crossover is actually awesome. But as always, with every game that I review on this channel, that's just my opinion about everything. Let me know what you guys think about Street Fighter X Tekken down below in the comments section. Tell me, are you still a fan of Street Fighter X Tekken? Do you want to see other fighting game crossovers with Capcom or another company? You know, whatever like franchise or IP that you guys want to see mashed up together. Tell me about that down below in the comments section. I'm curious to see what you guys bring up. It'll be making for a really interesting combo. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. Go ahead and click the boxes on the side to see more videos and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to go visit my Patreon page for exclusive gaming content that I know you'll really love. Hope you have a chill day. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.